Okay, everyone, I just want to welcome you all to Go Dharmic's Christmas 2020 fundraiser. A bit of housekeeping before we start the session. You are all muted, and if you have any questions, please do post them into the chat, and time permitting, we will do our best to pick them up and answer them throughout the session. It's been an incredibly unique year with two extremely important causes brought to the limelight. Firstly, hunger and poverty has struck so many as a result of the pandemic, and Go Dharmic have been working so hard to overcome this, and they've been successful too. 300,000 raised and over 3 million meals distributed since the lockdown. Secondly, the Black Lives Matter movement, which saw people taking to the streets for their rights, people coming together across the world to have their voices heard. We're going to be talking about both of these issues on today's call. We've already raised a massive £4,500, so thank you to everyone who's contributed so far, especially Canary Wharf Group, who have donated £2,000. It's a great start, but we're nowhere near done. Over the next hour, we want your help to raise £20,000. Every single penny goes towards families who are really struggling to make ends meet at the moment. And we always rely on the goodwill of volunteers to help us, so no one gets paid in this work. Please help us continue this into 2021. Please sit back, enjoy a chat with some wonderful guests that we've got lined up and who have taken the time out to be here today. And please remember to donate. We will be reminding you throughout the session. So with us today is Hemal Randawala, co-founder of Go Dharmic and our host, former cricketers Michael Holding and Devon Malcolm, Roy Hemmings, former member of the Drifters, and barrister Caroline Haughey, member of Queen's Counsel and awarded an OBE last year for amazing work in tackling modern slavery. So please do remember to donate and enjoy the chat. Over to you, Hemal.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here. I'm just overwhelmed to see so many of you and so much support. A special thanks to our special guests who have taken the time to come on, especially a great hero of mine, Michael Holding, who's a hero of so many people. I'm so glad to have you on board with us. Thank you for joining. Before I give a formal introduction to our special guests today, I'd just like to share with everybody a little bit of information about GD, about Go Dharmic, what we're trying to do together, and about why we're all here today. So many people will be new to Go Dharmic and not really know what it's about. What do we mean when we say Go Dharmic? So I just want to share a little bit of background about that, and then go on to introduce our guests and go on to some chat, and where we can all learn from these wonderful guests that we have with us today. So in a nutshell, Go Dharmic is all about a movement of the heart. How do we do what our heart tells us to, which is to help others? As a community of volunteers, we're inspired by this idea of dharma, which we define as love for all beings. Now, we understand it to be our social, spiritual, and moral responsibility to help people during this difficult time. And I really think that it's been an amazing wave of compassion that we've seen through these volunteers who have come forward to help others throughout the world with food distribution efforts in Lebanon, Morocco, Nigeria, all across India. In almost every state, there's been food distribution efforts of people coming forward to help one another, with 3 million meals distributed since the start of the pandemic. And I really want to say thank you to everybody who's been volunteering so many hours. We have full-time volunteers who give all of their time towards helping others and doing nothing but that for that very reason. It's been 9 years since we started this work with Go Dharmic. I don't know how time's flown so quickly, but it's really heartwarming to see what's possible. And we're deeply inspired by the great peacemakers that have come and shown us a great example to follow. People like Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Nelson Mandela, and the Dalai Lama. People like Vinoba Bhave, the great Indian saint and social activist who walked around India barefoot and managed to get the land size of Scotland donated through his sheer determination and love. So Go Dharmic has 8 principles that we try to embody and share and promote, and those values are love, compassion, service, friendship, peace, non-violence, truth, and charity. But in one word, if we really describe it, it's all about love. How do we express love for others? How do we widen the circle of compassion? The Indian term Vasudeva Kutumbakam comes to mind, where it means the world is one family. And Vinoba, who I mentioned earlier, he was a great activist during the Indian independence movement against the colonial rule. And they used to shout Jai Hind, which means glory to India, during that independence movement. But then after the independence movement, Vinoba said that now we should chant Jai Jagat, which means glory to the world, glory to all of us, because he had done the job of freeing India. It was now to free the world and to be happy and to bring happiness towards all living beings. And I think that that's where Go Dharmic, and as a community, all of us together, we have a unique opportunity to serve in the world and to bring some real joy to people and relieve suffering wherever we see it, whether that's through promoting and highlighting the Black Lives Matter movement, or through serving our environment, which is in such a disastrous state at the moment. I think that's where we've got this opportunity, this God-given opportunity to serve. And I thank everyone for kind of coming forward to do what we've achieved so far, but we've got so much to do. As of today, here in the UK, UNICEF has announced that they'll be giving aid to UK food poverty for the first time in its history. UK is the 5th richest country in the world. Now, something is wrong if here in the UK, the fountain of wealth for 200 years in the world has food poverty issues such that UNICEF needs to divert potential aid money for countries in the developing world to here in the UK to help put meals on the table of young children in schools. And it's been an incredible service by so many volunteers across the UK, from Luton to Glasgow. Young Martin, who was only 16 years old, distributing thousands of meals. Artie in Luton leading incredible food distribution efforts in Luton for school children. So many names, so many people that it's too much to mention here. But every one of our volunteers that's been serving and helping, and to everyone who's kind of chipped in with donations or helping us move forward. Last April, we raised £20,000 in an hour, and we really need your help to do something similar to today, so that we can support as many people over this Christmas period as possible. As you know, Marcus Rashford's been doing an amazing job promoting food poverty across the UK, and this is something right on our doorstep, and we want to help address that as much as possible here today. So I want to just introduce our special guests now, and it gives me a lot of pleasure to do so. Thank you to each one of you for being on the call. Really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you. So Michael Holding first, known as the Whispering Death, played 60 test matches for the West Indies, 102 one-day internationals, and taking 391 international wickets. So further to being an incredible and successful international cricketer, Michael is a leading cricket commentator and has been a prominent voice for the Black Lives Matter movement, recently being awarded the Freedom of the City of London Award for speaking out against racism. His heartfelt words reached over 15 million people recently this summer, and I tell you, they really hit my heart, Michael, when you were speaking. So really incredible. I'm looking forward to asking you a little bit more about that shortly. Devon Malcolm. Devon was the leading fast bowler for England and is attributed with bowling one of the most terrifying spells of fast bowling ever bowled against South Africa, where he took 9 for 57. He was recognized by the great Nelson Mandela as the Destroyer and was the only black player on an all-white team to South Africa. Devon has been a heartfelt supporter of Go Dharmic and has helped us with fundraising and awareness, especially through our partnership with Northamptonshire County Cricket Club, established by Barry Godrian, and our Sport for Good campaign, which tries to use sport as a vehicle for promoting goodness. Caroline Haughey, QC. Caroline prosecutes and defends across a wide variety of serious and high-profile criminal cases. Caroline specializes in modern-day slavery, human trafficking, organized crime, and violence offenses. Caroline has been recognized as a leading advocate and was on the Prime Minister's task force for modern-day slavery. And I'd also like to formally introduce Roy Hemmings. With a career spanning 4 decades, Roy's appeal has been high profile, with appearances in several royal variety shows and 2 performances at the White House for the then President Bill Clinton. Roy was one of the iconic drifters, enlisted for his soulful sound, and is cited as being one of the longest serving former members of the Drifters, who he was with founder Johnny Moore for more than 12 years. So thank you all for joining us today. And I'd like to get straight into it with Michael, if you're there and happy for me to ask you a few things and to capture your thoughts.
No problem.
Thank you, thank you. So Michael, your words on Sky TV went straight to the heart. They hit straight home, and you know, I felt them straight away as you were speaking. When you spoke about you know, your parents, you found it, for somebody who speaks on TV all the time, you spoke about your parents' experiences, and you know, you filled up and you couldn't say the words, and you know, we felt that as well at the same time. What about that? What did you feel there, and what was that kind of the emotions that came out there? Because you know, when we're talking about Go Dharmic, we're talking about the heart, and you know, what moves us to act and what moves us to do things to make a difference, and that's all from the heart. And I feel that everything you were saying that day came straight hitting from the heart. You know, it wasn't a pre-prepared script of paper, it wasn't, you know, something that you had planned, it just came out. So could you share a little bit about that, you know, just so that we can learn and, you know, be more in that space with you?
Yeah, well, Himal, it was a matter of Sky deciding that, you know, with the Black Lives Matter movement going on and all the demonstrations after the killing of George Floyd, that they needed to do something, and especially with Ebony Rainford Brent and myself working for them. So that is where it all started. And of course, when I mentioned the fact about my parents, that is not something that I grew up with. So I don't want people to think that I grew up with that and I knew about it and it affected me or it affected the family, because it was never ever discussed amongst the family. I found out about that later on in life when my mother told me about it. Of course, growing up, you're not really thinking about things like that. You know, I just know I never saw too many of her family members around. I saw our siblings around, but not our senior family members. And you just don't think about things like that. You don't think, why are they not around? And then later on in life, you get to discover exactly why, because they were against her marrying a man that was as dark as my father. And so she was pretty much ostracized from the family. But again, as I said, I didn't grow up with that on my shoulders. I never grew up with things like that worrying me and beating down on me. And my mother never ever showed that she was under any pressure with that in her life either. You would never ever think that my mother would have been thinking about that when she was bringing us up as kids. I'm the last of the 4 kids that she and my dad had. And at no time did I ever hear her complain about the fact that her family didn't really talk to her. She just dedicated her life and herself to bringing up her family. And that is just exactly what she did. For me then to remember that when we were talking on Sky, that got me a little bit emotional, because as I said, I didn't experience it, but when we started talking about Black Lives Matter and the treatment of Black people in general, it brought back those emotions. And that is why I was a little bit emotional until I cry easily anyway.
Great. And so Michael, could you tell me about the spirit of 76? That's what I want. I'm a very passionate person where, you know, we talk about causes and, you know, trying to make a difference. And I feel that, you know, it was 5 years before I was born, but Bob Marley, Viv Richards, yourself, the Whispering Death, what was it that, you know, when I think about or watch the videos of the roaring West Indian locals of Britain, who, you know, felt that connect, because like you said in some interviews that there were bus drivers or people who were working on the tube, or, you know, not coming from money or background struggle in a cold country that's disfamiliar and different to what they know. What was it that made them roar during that period, and what did you connect with there?
Well, in 1976, that was my first time to England. I had never been to England before. I didn't know too much about the country apart from what my mother had briefly said, because she became a teacher and she went up to the UK for 1 year in the 50s when she was studying to become a teacher. So you got a little bit of a story from her as to exactly what England was like. But it certainly wasn't what I experienced in 76 and later on in the 80s. But in 76, at 22 years old, I was just interested in playing cricket. Of course, there were some people that showed some racist tendencies. We got a few letters in the dressing room to tell us where to go back to and that sort of a thing. But me personally, Himal, I didn't worry about it because I wasn't playing county cricket to say that, I was facing that every summer in the UK. I had just gone up there for 3.5, 4 months. I was going to play my cricket and go back home. So I didn't worry too much about it. Later on in life, when I started to tour England more regularly in the 80s, then started playing county cricket and playing England again in England in the 83, 84, right through the 80s, I got to experience a bit more of this racism. And of course, I got more involved with the West Indians who lived in the UK. And then I started listening to their stories and listening to exactly experiences that they had. And then I could sort of more identify with that sort of a thing. And I could then understand why West Indians were so adamant that we had to win. The West Indies team, that is, had to win every time we went to England, because they figured that once we won, they could then go out onto the streets and prove to everyone or show everyone that they are of worth. The same place that we are from here in England, people are coming and beating you English guys on the cricket field. That gave them something to laugh about, to smile about, to be proud about. Because if the West Indies lost, and certainly later years we have been losing, they would go to work and there would be a newspaper on their desk or in their workstation or wherever they change their clothes to show the headlines that the West Indies had lost to England. So whenever we won, it lifted them. And that is what helped us as well, because we would get a lot of support throughout England. They would travel all around England with us. I know a guy who lost his job because he should have been at work when the cameras picked him up in the stands. So, they followed us, they supported us, and of course, we knew exactly what we were going through. So that helped to lift us. But Sender Six, I didn't know too much about that. I was just playing cricket.
Right, okay. And on cricket, I grew up in a town called Luton, not far from London, and grew up at the same club as Monty Panesar, who you probably have come across, who was an amazing talent for such a period, and then kind of found a difficult later period, but was an amazing talent. And we grew up together with my brother and many other friends in a very small club called Luton Town and Indians. Although it had that name and association with Indians, we had this coach called Hitu Nayak, and Hitu used to train the English kids and the Indian kids and the Pakistani kids and West Indian kids and anybody who came to him. And he worked all night in the in a factory, Vauxhall, which is the car factory in Luton, and used to train kids in the morning, give them throwdowns. Nobody had ever made it from the club, but he almost had that vision that somebody will make it from here. And today we have people like Monty who have come out from there through sheer determination and no funding support, or everyone who was making it through the system then was private school educated and had a kind of or most of the majority of people came through that. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think about cricket as a social force and sport as a social force now? Perhaps previously, as a youngster, you were just focused on playing, but right now, with Go Dharmic, we're trying to see what we can do with the UN to get children to get into sport and find passion and meaning through sport, so that they don't get led into things like terrorism or feeling lost in that way. What role does that have right now in the importance of cricket?
Himal, I think sports, or team sports in particular, can go a long way in helping with the development of youngsters. When you're playing in a team sport, you have to rely on the other people in your team. If it's cricket, you have 10 others, football, similar. You have some teams that have less, basketball, have less players, 6, whatever. But you have to be relying on other people in your team. And that then broadens your horizon into thinking more about other people instead of thinking about yourself. If you're a golfer, you're a tennis player, you can go and play golf on your own and just concentrate on your skills and exactly what you have got to do. But when you have to rely on other people, you have to think more than just about yourself. And as I said, that broadens your horizon about thinking. And when I was a young man growing up, I played almost all team sports. I hardly played any individual sports. And of course, I had friends from all different races and all different creeds and whatever. because as a young man, you don't see things like that. You're just growing up, you're playing your sport, you're enjoying your sport, you have your teammates, and that sort of a thing. And as you go through life, the more you have a team environment, the better it is for you with your development. I'm not saying that individual sports doesn't develop people, because you can still build character from individual sports, but then you don't have to rely on anyone. And I think this is what the world should be all about. People helping each other. And whether you are white, black, pink, green, yellow, once you are a human being, you should be seen as a human being and willing to help each other. And I think sport, and especially team sport, can go a long way towards that endeavor.
Amazing. Well, yeah, it's something that Devon's been working closely with us on as well, and we're trying to find more and more ways to engage kids into sport, and especially those team sports like cricket, where they can kind of come together and lean on each other and see that we're all one and equal. You know, as kids, we never question, like when we played as children, we never saw any differences between the different communities. It's only when we're older and become educated that we kind of see those differences. So, you know, as my young children today, they don't see the differences between them and their friends by community or color of skin. And I hope that color blindedness can come where we don't have to recognize that. There's an amazing book I was reading recently by Isabel Wilkinson called Caste. And it talks about caste, not just, you know, like the caste system in India, but the caste everywhere in the world, where we have a higher and a lower and hierarchies. And
Very
throughout the
interesting
world.
book.
Yeah, it gave me shivers. Have you read that one? You seen that one?
Yes, I know the book you are talking about.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's a really wonderful story, and I think that's what Go Dharmic is trying to build as a community and as a platform. Like Martin Luther King said, the beloved community. That is all one. We're all one human family, and I thank you for kind of inspiring us to be more in that direction and to push and to work. You know, your words that day and what you stand for. Although they call you Whispering Death, I think that there's also another side to you that, you know, that people really love, and that's the human being part of you. So I really appreciate you coming on today and
No problem,
and speaking
if I
with
may
me.
just make one point though. It's great to talk about sport and what sport can do. But as you just said, when your kid is growing up, you're unaware of anything to do with race or creed, religion, nothing. You're unaware of that. You just see people as people. As you get older and you get into the society in which you live, that is when you start recognizing those things, because they are quite evident in the society. And that is what we need to change, Himal. Changing the sport and making sports more diversified is not going to solve the problem. That helps, yes, but it will not solve the problem until we can change the society in which we live. And I give people the example of South Africa during apartheid. If during apartheid in South Africa, they'd allowed everyone to mix and play sports, but at the end of the day, they still went back to the apartheid system, nothing would have changed. It would not have helped anyone. So we have to think about the society and not just the sports.
And on that, Michael, do you think that it's important for us, like to, as you've raised your voice so loudly and, you know, shared it publicly, on us as, you know, ordinary people in society to kind of shout it out when we do see wrong, or, you know,
For sure.
don't accept it, like
It's
that.
everyone.
Yeah, each one of us.
And it's good to see, Himal, that so many corporations are getting behind this thing about racism and trying to stamp it out. Because without big money and big corporations getting involved, nothing will happen. Racism is systemic. It is institutionalized. And corporations are the ones that are these institutions. They have to change everything. The normal human being on the road just by himself will not change institutionalized racism.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. Even just like the City of London, or hiring, the way you see like who owns the, who gets the best paid jobs, who's in there, and it's not only about the races, it's also about the sexes as well. You know, how many females traders are there working at the banks in the city, and so on. Like who gets the high paid roles and jobs. So 100% agree. And, you know, the more we can work towards solving some of these things, but also, you know, without bringing more hatred to the game, like Nelson Mandela did, bringing it with love and reconciliation and doing that, because bringing more pain or bringing more hatred to the equation only creates more noise. We have to do it with
a confrontational thing, Himal. It's never meant to be confrontational. Yeah. I'm writing a book right now, and at no point in the book am I being confrontational. That solves no problems. The book is going to be trying to teach, to show history, show true history, not just the biased history that has been taught by some. And that is going to be very important, that people are educated the right and proper way, not just the way one set of people want other people to be educated.
Oh, well, I look forward to reading that. Michael, what's it going to be called?
Why We Kneel, How We Rise.
Amazing. Well, I'm sure everyone in the Go Dharma community will look forward to reading it, and you know, when it's ready, we'll look forward to sharing that.
Okay, Mark.
Thank you so much. So,
Can I just jump in?
Sure, please.
Thank you to everyone who's donated whilst we've been on the call. We really do appreciate it. We are now at 5,800. Thank you to a donor who's just donated £1,000. I'm going to keep you anonymous if you don't want your name called out, but we really do appreciate it. There's still a long way to go, guys, so please keep digging into your pockets. Thanks all.
That's the way we have to do it. You know, this Christmas is a difficult period. You know, directly we have families that are telling us that, you know, without our food meal packs that we're providing them, they have to decide whether to put the heating or the electrics on in their house for the children. And I mean, just down the road in Luton, there's 200 families at 7 schools that we're supporting right now that depend on these meal packs. And it's providing them with the basic healthy food supplies that can get them through. They might have lost jobs, they might have come into a difficult circumstances due to COVID, and now, you know, they're really depending on this stuff right here in the UK. Although we've done a lot of work globally, it's right here that we're you know, seeing it right in front of us, and that's where, you know, I'd like to invite Caroline to kind of say a few words. Caroline, really pleased to have you on. Thank you for joining us and the community today. I was researching for this session a little bit about yourself, and I listened to a talk on YouTube where you mentioned something about a young girl who, as young as 15, was sold for £500 and forced into slavery. I would like to hear from you, if you would please. What is modern slavery, and how is it right here in the UK? When we think of slavery, we think about the slavery of colonial period and pre-colonial period where that existed. How is it the slavery, as you say, hidden right in front of us?
Thank you, Hemal, for this opportunity. And Mikey, it's always a pleasure listening to you and what you have to say. Modern slavery is such an ironic statement. I did the first modern slavery case in Britain. I can't believe I'm saying that, 10 years ago. If I told you what the figures were for slavery worldwide, it's 43 million. Just to be in slavery or exploitative relationships. That's the combined population of New York, Tokyo, and London. Now, to be saying we've got modern slavery in the UK, the good thing is we have now an act that addresses this. When I prosecuted the case 10 years ago, I couldn't prosecute the modern slavery. I could only prosecute the fact that the victim had been trafficked from Tanzania to the UK. The reality is we live in a society, more so than ever, where consumerism prevails. People want to go to a nail bar and get their nails done for a tenner. People want to wear a piece of clothing that costs £8. But you need to consider not just what the sustainable environmental cost of that is, what's the human cost? Because for something to be created, a human being has to do an act. And the reality is there are desperate people who are desperate to earn a living, even if that living is below, not even the breadline, but below poverty. I did a case in Stafford a couple of years ago where we had 3 young Vietnamese females who were brought into the UK. They didn't know their date of birth, so they didn't know how old they were. They believed they were 15. They'd been trafficked by land through Russia, Finland, via Scotland into the UK. They had, when I say no belongings, when one of the girls was found in the nail bar, the sum total of what she had was a purse with a used bus ticket and a sanitary pad and the clothing she was wearing. Those were her total belongings in the world. And yet, in that nail bar in Burton-on-Trent, where she was working, there was a queue of people going to get their nails done for a tenner for an hour's work. How is that possible? It's the potatoes and the onions on our plates. I did a case 2 years ago called Operation Fort, which was the largest human trafficking case in Britain. In fact, in Europe, where we had over 350 Polish nationals brought to the UK by a Polish group, family-led, and they were working for David Austin Roses. They were working for Sandfield Onions Farm. So that's the onions that Sainsbury's and Waitrose and Tesco's and all the other supermarkets buy. Now, it's not a criticism of Sandfields, and it's not a criticism of David Austin Roses. It's a criticism of us as the consumer, because if we want cheap food, people will be paid nothing to collect it. And there is a market for not just cheap labour, but exploitative labour. And we as a society have to be more aware of the human cost of what we are consuming, buying and using. And that's the real problem. And it's in plain sight. I mean, literally hidden in plain sight. I gave a lecture at a law firm who were very keen to make sure that they were able to advise on being supply chain compliant. My first question was, how do you know that the cleaners who are cleaning your offices are not in bonded labour? And in fact, it's like Go Dharmic that are changing the world in modern slavery. It was a charity in West Bromwich in Birmingham that brought to us, the police and subsequently me, the fact that there was this persistent, consistent large numbers of Polish males walking 15 miles a day to get a bowl of soup because they had no food, who had no water and were washing with the water from the canal, who had no electricity, who were living 15 to a room or 15 to an unheated house with no running water, no electricity, no clothing, no food. But because people want something for nothing, and we, the consumer, and I include myself, are part and parcel of the problem, we permit it to happen. We create the market, and so therefore human beings become have a price.
And on that, how do we get around this whole issue of, say, for example, value being created in countries like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and they might be providing, even today's society, like, say, for example, an IT developer in India, his value, just purely based on his location, is significantly less than our value based here in London. And we're working from home just like him now. So there's not even any physical difference between us meeting, but yet he might be paid £10 an hour, and the developer here being paid 50 or £100 an hour, purely because of geographical location that doesn't even make a difference. So that discrimination is something that I see, even in broad daylight. But I feel that that's even more so with everything that we consume as well, like the clothing items, the factories that are producing it. How much of the £100 piece of clothing goes to the factory worker in Bangladesh that produces it, or that small element? I feel that that we have to move towards a more borderless situation, right? Like,
I agree. I think what we need to do is we have to have more respect for our fellow man, and we have to acknowledge that we all have the same rights. The difficult thing is, what is acceptable within one culture is not acceptable in another. One case that particularly sits with me is a young Nigerian man who was bought in Nigeria, sold by his parents into what they believed was a better life, and trafficked via Israel into the UK and kept, and I do mean kept, as a possession for 20 years who educated himself in English by listening to Radio 4 and made his complaint to the police because, ironically, he heard a program on modern slavery and understood that that was how he found himself. But he was hidden in plain sight in this country, and the people who were being prosecuted for their conduct were generally surprised that that was unacceptable behavior. So it's unacceptable here, but in another jurisdiction, it is socially acceptable, and it's a very difficult field to navigate. But as Mikey brought up South Africa, the speech that for me sums all of this up is something that Robert F. Kennedy, JFK's brother, said when he was trying to deal with a speech on apartheid. And I know you've watched the Rusi lecture on YouTube, and it was the speech that I quoted at the end. The reality is we each have a social responsibility to our fellow man. We can make a change. I agree with Mike. Education, education. I do not believe in confrontation because I work in a confrontational environment. That's the court system. When I started on modern slavery 10 years ago, there was no act. We now have an act. We've had it reviewed not once, but twice. We've had an entire education on policing. The UK seeks, whether it achieves it or not is different, but it seeks to lead by example in this field. Australia, as a result of what we did in the UK, have got their own act. There are other jurisdictions in the Middle East and in Chile and around the world who are trying to make a change because someone with a voice standing up for what they believe in. And as Robert F. Kennedy said, each time a man stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. And something that Go Dharmic is doing is being the ripple of change and the ripple of hope. And I don't think that one single person can make, but I think people like Mike and Dev who stand up and ask to be counted, and the rest of us who seek to try and emulate them, will make a societal change. And that's what actually we're driving for. It's a societal change to acknowledge that we're all human and therefore we all have the same rights to education, to health, and to be the best person that we can be. And that the right to have food on our table and the right to be healthy and safe is what people died for in war, not the First and the Second World War, but time immemorial. And we as human beings have to do the right thing by our fellow man. We shouldn't turn the other way. We should turn back and say, what can I do to make a difference?
And that's really beautiful words. I really appreciate you saying that. What can we do to make a difference? I'm one of the volunteers in this organization. There's 3,000 of us. We deal with homeless people, people who have been possibly trafficked, on the streets. People have just come out of prison and vulnerable, people who are on drugs and vulnerable. What can we do as people who face those vulnerable people to make a difference if we suspect somebody might be in that difficult situation?
Well, you've hit the key word. It's vulnerability. And vulnerability is without class, without distinction. Vulnerability is blind, okay? Any one of us is vulnerable by the circumstances we may find ourselves in. And what we need to do is we need to call it out. We need to report it. Sometimes, well, let me rephrase that. The priority is safeguarding those who are ripe for exploitation and or are being exploited. We can't prosecute all the bad guys because sometimes we have to make a value judgment of safeguarding the vulnerable at the cost of not prosecuting the big guy because the vulnerable protection is the priority. So I don't get to prosecute all the people I want. I don't get to lock up all the bad guys. But I can go to bed and sleep safer if I know that people who are at risk of being exploited are being protected. So if you see it on the streets, if you go to a nail bar and you're getting your nails done and you're not comfortable with the age or the ability of the person that is doing your manicure or pedicure to change their circumstances, report it to the police. There's a helpline that you can ring and report these things. If you go to an office and someone's cleaning your desk, and in these days of COVID, the cleaning is upped, ask, are you okay? Just show a little bit of compassion and interest in the people you interact with, because a single question can show you and take off the first layer of the onion to show you what's really going on. All it takes is, are you okay? How are you? And not just how are you in passing, how are you can make the difference, because you may be the first person that they've been able to speak to and put forward their story. The first modern slavery case came to light because our victim went to a doctor who thought this just isn't right and asked, not just in front of the defendant, who she made leave the room, but asked our victim in her absence, are you all right? And those 3 words can be the difference in someone's ability to ask for help. Because when you're a victim of exploitation, people are ashamed of their circumstances very often, or in denial that what is happening to them is happening. So offering the branch of interest, friendship, kinship can be the change that they need and the opportunity that they must have to change their circumstances.
That's amazing. I really agree. And I think when we see some of these people who are really struggling and they come to us on the food distribution, so we do an open street food distribution where people can get access to hot meals without any questions asked. So, I do feel that, poverty may be a very complex issue, but if we can just provide one stream of free meals or hot meals, and, that we're not asking any questions, it's just tea, coffee, and a hot meal, come and take it, it's free. And then at that point, those people open up and they feel that, they're not asking me, where's my passport or where's my question, and then how are you can come in really nicely there. And I think for us as volunteers, I think that's something we should incorporate more of, as try to find channels to process potential vulnerability and find them people that can really kind of move them into safe houses or into environments that can make a difference.
We have a system in the UK called the National Referral Mechanism. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect, nothing in life ever is, but if someone is a victim of trafficking, there are charities, there are places and people who can help. And I can tell you there is an appetite to help. Okay, I want to be put out of a job. That's the dream. Okay, and those 3 questions, or 3 words, forgive me, how are you? That's all it takes. Just to offer a bit of compassion.
I really appreciate you saying that, and I hope you lose your job very soon.
So do I.
We'll do everything in our power to make sure you lose your job soon. Thank you so much, Carol. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I hope post-lockdown we get to meet personally. Michael, Caroline, I really hope that we get to meet face-to-face one day and share this kind of experience in future events. So I just want to bring in Sanjay Sidar. Sanjay's been a very long-standing friend of mine from school, but is also a prominent businessman here in the UK and has been driving our fundraising efforts throughout COVID. It's with his help that we've raised quite a lot of money so far, and have been able to kind of feed everyone that we've been approached for help. And we've not said no to anyone. So everybody that's approached us and said, hey, can you help here, can you do something here, by some kind of energy and grace, we've managed to continue that effort. So Sanj, you wanted to share a few words, please, about education and library projects as well, which we haven't mentioned.
Sure. Well, first of all, good evening all. It's a pleasure to be speaking alongside our GD ambassadors this evening. It's so meaningful that we all share the common vision in making a difference to those in need, irrespective of your race, your religion, or your culture. I'd like to take this opportunity to talk about improving sustainability of poverty and how we can together help inspire young children to focus on education, which will in turn provide them opportunities in their future lives to excel and create a better living for themselves and others. Many children in developing countries do not have the fortunate facilities and access to free education like what we have over here in the UK. With your help, we've opened over 74 children's libraries over the years in India within state schools, provided over 12,000 clothing items, and have donated over 24,000 children's books, which are sourced locally within the vicinity. This operation is extremely well monitored, and I can provide further information as to how this is orchestrated, and has helped inspire and benefited over 67,000 children. Now, although this is a humble achievement in such a short period, but for GD and myself personally, who's extremely passionate about education, we won't stop there. We've created great links and trusted patrons in East Africa and Kenya and Lagos, Nigeria, and aim to have opened 150 libraries by the end of 2021. Donations will go towards tables, chairs, books, computers, and decorating classrooms. And if anybody would like to join Hamel and I in September 2021, we'll be personally going to India to participate and help open libraries in Mumbai and Punjab. I just want to say, like, we're approaching Christmas and we will enjoy festivities with our families and our friends, but please take a moment and think that if each one of us puts aside a fraction of the money that we're going to be using during this period and allocate it towards changing a child's future through education, it will bring you much more joy and fulfillment than anything, I promise you. So even if it's £50, £500, your donations will help at GD to make a positive difference to these children. And it won't only benefit them for one day or one month, but for the rest of their lives. So please help us exceed our target for our Christmas fundraiser by clicking on the Just Giving link, or you could donate to us directly. And I thank you all for your time, and Hemel, back over to you, mate.
Thank you, Sanjay. Really good kind of dig there at getting everyone to raise money. You heard it from Sanjay. Please donate some of your Christmas funds towards us. We are now at £6,200, which is amazing. So again, a really, really heartfelt thank you to everyone that's been donating. We've had donations coming in a flow throughout the whole session, but we don't want to stop there. Please, please continue. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Stanley. You muted me, so I thought maybe you were fed up of me talking too much, so lock me off, as they say in Jamaica. All right. So I really appreciate that, Sanj. As we kind of have always agreed that, as Mikey said earlier, it's education, 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 that if we can empower the young kids to become educated, to make their own choices, avoid early child marriages, to make decisions for their own life, then that's going to be the biggest way. And it's a really easy and impactful thing to develop a school at an existing state library where the government already has the building, they have the infrastructure. We just need to provide them with books, sports equipment, the ability and the teachers and the training to be able to nurture those children into a position of strength and confidence to achieve more with their lives. So I really appreciate that. And next, I'd like to bring in my dear friend, Devon Malcolm. Devon, I know you as being a wonderfully kind, gentle man, always smiling. I was speaking earlier to my friend, our common friend, Neil Burns, former Leicestershire cricketer and wicketkeeper. And when I spoke to him and I said, Devon's going to be on with us later, please join if you can. He said, Devon is one of the best people in the world. That was his statement. But there's the other side to you that I want to kind of dig into a little bit. I think we've covered a lot of deep things about the work of GD as well as the work we do. But tell me, Devon, what did the words mean? You guys are history. What's the story behind that? What does you guys are history mean? That doesn't sound like the Devon Malcolm I know.
you really don't know me. But before I start, Hamel, I must say a massive thank you to a couple of my heroes there. My boyhood hero in Michael Holden and Caroline for such an inspirational talk. I mean, those guys are absolutely fantastic. Michael Holden, you know, thank you very much for using the platform during the summer so much. It's opened a lot of doors to people. And as you said, it's opened my eyes massively amount, and you touch a lot of people's hearts. And you're making, from your talk during the summer, you open a lot of doors for people, and you know, authorities and you know, heads are turning and listening and putting things in place. You see, but yeah, I mean, back to your question, Hamal, is you know, you guys are history. I mean, obviously you're talking about South Africa for cricket. You know, I'm probably going to go on a more lighter note. I mean, as I said, Mikey, we learn a hell of a lot. Caroline, just the same, really deep stuff. But I'm just going to make it a little bit more light-hearted in a way, although it was very serious at the time. Yes, I mean, this you guys are history. You know, we heard Michael Holden talk about South Africa and all that business. South Africa, since apartheid, the first time South Africa toured England, you know, since the apartheid days back in 1994. And it was a 3-test match series against South Africa. I wasn't selected for the first 2 test matches. The final test match at the Oval, the selectors called, England were 1-0 down actually, and they called, we need a match winner. We need Devon Malcolm back. And as it happens, I came back for the final test match at the Oval in 1994. And you know, just push the story on a little bit. I'll tell you what, if we had time, I could take you through this ball by ball, but I don't believe we want that right now. And just put the story on a bit. You know, I bowled pretty well in the first innings. But there's an incident that happened. Where I went out to bat, and one of the South African fast bowler, Fani de Villiers, ran up and he bowled me a bouncer. Very first ball I faced. But you know, way back then, think back 1994, there was this unwritten rule: a fast bowler doesn't bowl his fellow bowler a bouncer first ball. So I was expecting Fani to bowl me a Yorker actually. And the perfect bouncer hit me right between the eyes. You know, the ball clunked me right on the head. And I, you know, as I said, I was really fired up for winning the game, for it, helping England to win the game. But I had just to turn around to the South African guys in the slip squad and was giving a little bit of giggle and all that business to tell them, said, look, if you guys really want to know what fast bowling is all about, wait till you come out to the bat. And I told them they were going to be history. And as it happens, by the end of the innings, I took 9 wickets, bowled South Africa out single-handedly. But when, you know, Michael mentioned, we were talking earlier about team. If ever you're talking about a team effort, I took the wickets. I ended up getting nine wickets in that game. But I tell you what, my fellow players, the fielders, every catch was taken. The guys were just totally behind it, because I told them in the changing room, and they wanted me to do exactly what I said I was going to do. And as it happens, that night for 57, then back in 1994, we ended up winning the test match. It was the best bowling analysis since history, by a quick bowler anyway. I mean, Michael Holden as well. You mentioned about 1976. One of my schoolboy heroes, Michael Holden as well. He had a magnificent performance, you know, at the Oval. And to see one of my heroes, I went literally at the same ground, playing for England, and you know, and do something special on that ground as well. So you know, it's just almost looking at it. Really, it's you know, it's a dream coming through over and over, no doubt.
Amazing. And you met Nelson Mandela, Madiba, and he called you the destroyer. But what did you glean from that conversation and from him? And you know, what did you take from your engagement with him?
Yes, you know, that performance, and you know, it's a kind of a funny story here, in the sense when I actually took those wickets against South Africa, I took 9 wickets. A guy called Roy Bremner, a comedian, he was a extremely good comedian, and he used to take the accent of you know, of many politicians, and namely Nelson Mandela was one of those. And you know, I actually had a call after the game against England, and I heard he said, "Devon, you know, well done." And I keep saying, "Okay." And I'm there listening and said, "Well done, you've had a great performance there." And I actually thought it was Rory Bremner. So I actually said, "Okay, Rory, that's enough, mate." And you know what? It was actually Nelson Mandela who called up, and I just could not believe it. I actually thought it was Rory taking the mickey out of me, you know. And as I said, following that, you know, on Nelson Mandela, his first visit to England, myself and my wife, and you know, and quite a few other dignitaries like Trevor McDonald and a few guys who were actually invited to number 10 with the Prime Minister, John Major, then to have lunch. And, you know, on my return, actually talking about South Africa, I actually went back to South Africa, the first England tour to South Africa after the apartheid days, as I said, and we were practicing, having the first class game in the township in Soweto. I was the only black guy in the England team at the time, and was there. And all of a sudden, I heard this commotion, helicopters and everything, and stopped the game. And there was Nelson Mandela turned up. Nobody knew. Stopped the game. There was Madiba, came out with the first class test match in the township. Made a beeline to me, as you said. And that's where the word came out when he said to me, "Look, I know who you are. You know, you are the destroyer." And I just could not believe it. And it was, you know, it was one of those things, a very sensitive tour, as you can imagine. First time England went back to South Africa. And so I said, "Okay, you know, President, you know, we're quite happy to help with the process. But at the end of the day, we're here to play cricket. I'm going to make the South African boys jump around again, to be honest." And, you know, as I said, you know, it was a high profile stuff. CNN, all the world press were there and all that. And, you know, it was one of those things that, you know, I see how meeting him there, how he met the guys, how he talked to people, how graceful a man he was, how forgiving he was just unbelievable, you know. And when he even mentioned to me, he said, "Look, he's only a politician." He said to me, he said, "Look, I'm only a politician. You'll be surprised to know what supposed people like yourself, how much quickly you get over to young people," as Michael was saying, you know. And I keep saying, "What?" So, you know, in the early stages, I was, you know, invited to South Africa and, you know, do the normal thing in the townships, do coaching clinics, supply the kids with cricket equipment, bats, even scoring book, anything to get them involved in this wonderful game of cricket, you know, and sport and giving something back, you understand? So yeah, it was, you know, I mean, the man was so humble. It's unbelievable how gracious and humble, and you know, how gracious, as I said, Madiba was.
Amazing. Yeah, I really feel like, you know, the way that he dealt with the reconciliation of everything after apartheid is the real example for all of us, that the amount of sacrifice that he made, and yet he didn't come at it with, like Mikey said, confrontation. He came at it with peace and reconciliation.
Peace,
and, and I think that that's the real big example and light that, you know, in all the difficulties we all face, there's that peacefulness that people like Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King walked with, that we really get inspired by. So that's how are we doing with Roy? I think Roy struggled to join us today.
Yeah, I believe I reckon Roy is struggling. He's been out doing quite a bit, but he apologized. He apologized as well. He meant to play a session live. He tried it several times, but obviously with social distancing, he said he was finding it extremely difficult to hook up with his backing group and to come across with something more visible. But what he did promise is this: hopefully in good times you'll see him in real. Hopefully we can have a gala dinner to support your charity, and obviously you'll turn up and do a live performance for a guest. So that's something to look forward to.
I've been listening to Roy all day long today, higher and higher. We've been
higher. He's a superb singer,
the whole thing. So I really appreciate that. Trupti, how are we doing? Where are we up to today?
Hi, Hemel. We're almost at £7,000, so we're doing really amazing. Thank you, everyone who's contributed.
Brilliant. Look, I just want to say a big thank you to all of our guests, to Devon, to Michael, and to Caroline for joining. I hope that it just expands our common work and common group for us as a world family. That's what it is. It doesn't matter which name the organization is or where we come under. We're all here trying to do the same thing, and that is to spread a bit of love and compassion. And for me, many times in GD's history, people have said to me, hey, why don't you specialize just in one thing? Get education right, get the feeding projects correct. And I've always found it difficult to answer that question. And, as my dad would say, what's the phrase? Master of none.
A jack of all trade, eh?
Jack of all trades and master of none. Jack of all trades and master of none. That's what he used to say. And for me with GD, it's like, it's only love, and love can be expressed in a million ways. And that's what we want to stand for. And wherever we see any kind of person that's suffering, or if there's a way we can improve that condition, we'll try our best to make that social impact. And the cause might change all the time. Today, it might be this thing that needs working on, but tomorrow there's going to be something. The environment that we're facing, such trauma in the environmental situation over the next decade, to heal that, biodiversity and animal welfare and all of those issues with climate change that we're facing. I think that there's always going to be areas for moral and social responsibility, as Caroline mentioned, and that is dharma. Dharma is love for all beings, and just like the dharma of fire would be to produce heat or light in the traditional philosophical sense. Ancient India, for 6,000 years, they've used that term of dharma as its innate responsibility or innate nature. Fire would be to produce heat or light. We kind of understand dharma of humanity to be humane, to be kind, to be loving, and that's what we're trying to do, is create a universal community. And to have such great ambassadors like yourself, Devon, Caroline, Mikey, who lend their voices and their stature and platforms to making this work a little bit more possible. I really, from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of everyone at GD, appreciate and thank you for that. So, and thank you for everyone else who's been on.
Yeah, no, but just saying, I'm just a massive thank you as well to Barry. I know his dad's not too well at the moment. He's away in Holland, but obviously he's helping out and running the Northampton branch of Dharmic, and he's been doing a tremendous work. He's been in cricket for years. As a matter of fact, he was my physio. That's why I played so long towards the end of my career. But Barry, hope your dad feel well soon, and we'll see you back in Northampton pretty soon. Yeah.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you for the kind words. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cheers, Barry. See you soon, mate. As I said, hope everything goes well, yeah?
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank
you. Keep up the hard work. I know you've been, the last time you were doing a marathon, where did you run to? You was somewhere in the Himalayas somewhere, weren't you?
It was about a year ago now, 2nd of December last year, for Go Dharmic, Shape a Future, with regards to raising money for the children's libraries in Nepal and India. That was the that was the marathon across the Mount Everest. So from base camp down to a place called Namche Bazaar, 42K. Only taken 8 hours and 45 minutes of my life. So I mean, come on, only a couple of hours. So yeah, what I said, we're trying to put a few plans together for hopefully another big one for Go Dharmic. So yeah, fingers crossed. But no, thanks to everyone for the hard work within their bubble. No, fantastic, really good. And I love what Caroline said about like the ripple of change and the ripple of hope. That's definitely something what I will use many times when people ask me, why the different, what you just said, Hemel, with regards to the different projects and why so many. But it is like I really love that, the ripple, because my dad asked me yesterday about like, okay, what how do you guys get on, and how many people can you reach, and I mean, if you start within your own community, and the community 10 miles further down, they do the same, and north 10 miles, they do the same, and the ripple becomes bigger, and like what Michael did, and like, I mean, I'm just a normal man with a small family in Northampton, and I had tears in my eyes when Michael said that. So I can imagine that, what I said, that the ripple can become a tidal wave when it is the perfect storm, definitely.
And Barry, you haven't mentioned where you're heading for GD. Like, Barry took the GD flag to the top of the Himalayas and ran a marathon across like an absolute crazy person. And now he's told me that his next mission is to raise awareness about the environment by heading. Barry, just share, please. Where are you heading next?
Yeah, some of the next project will be covered under the Go Green campaign by Go Dharmic, Go Green. So when you talk about Go Green and environment and waste, recycling and pollution, then I think Go Green and Greenland, the North Pole Circle Marathon, that would be fitting, and that would probably, that maybe can create a few more ripples. I mean, well, what I said, it's probably only going to take a few days, like the whole trip, and probably the marathon, hopefully another, only 6 hours. But what people will still talk about, not me doing it, but why I'm doing it, and that's the story. The story lives on. And what I said, I think that's where it is about, and this is a great platform again to talk about the good work of Go Dharmic and the principles of Dharma as well. So no, it's fantastic, really good. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Thank you everyone for joining today. We're going to end on with a nice song from Roy, and wishing everyone a Merry Christmas with their families. It's going to be different to any Christmas that we've ever experienced in our lives. We love to celebrate Christmas as a family and get together, normally 50 people crammed into a small house celebrating Christmas. I often think that, Hindus celebrate Christmas more than Christians do, but we have a fun time and we enjoy it, and I wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, and please do support GD, and thank you to everybody who has donated tonight to raise Tripti. What are we up to as a final figure for the call? Stanley?
Hi, Hemel. Apologies, I said a bit of a fib earlier. So we're on 6,700 at the moment. We're not far from 7,000. So come on, people, let's get to 7,000 before the end of this video.
There's still a phenomenal amount of money, and every person that we can help, every meal that we can deliver makes a difference. So I really appreciate everybody for being on and supporting, and please do continue to be part of the community and do whatever you can to make a difference wherever possible. So thank you everyone, take care, Merry Christmas, and see you all soon.
Well done, Emil.
Such a small town girl, news travels faster than a sound. every time we meet up on the street, we've got to keep it. Like sister and brother, we'll wave to each other. We don't want the world to know we are really lovers, so we'll talk about the weather. Though we're alone together, ain't all the world would be alive if, baby, it's only you and sometimes it's hard to find pent-up emotions we both feel. I wanna tell the world I love you, but I dare not say it. Until I let you go, there's only one way we can play. Oh, like sister and brother, we'll wave to each other. We don't want all the world to know we are really lovers, so let's talk about the weather. Though we're alone together, and all the world would be alive, and baby, there's only you and I. Like sister and brother, we'll wave to each other. We don't want all the world to know we are really lovers, so we'll talk about the weather. We're alone together. And all the world would be alive, and baby, there's only you and I. Wave to each other, we don't want the world to know we are really lovers, so they'll talk about the weather.